welcome to Crosspoint. My name's Abby. I'm so thrilled that you're tuning in with us today. We are in the midst of our annual At the Movies teaching series, taking a look at some of the biggest movies of the year and the spiritual fibers that weave in, around, and through each of these films. And today, we're going to be diving into the summer blockbuster, Oppenheimer. If we're honest, we all want to be a part of things that matter. And this weekend, we're going to see how we can find incredible meaning and purpose when we're a part of something bigger than ourselves. So if you're looking for a place to belong, a place where you can be a part of something that makes a difference in our world, you are in the right place today. If you've joined us before, welcome back. And if this is your first time with us, we certainly hope it's the first of many times. We're so glad you're here. We've built this place for people who don't have it all together, to be able to take steps to explore faith and what it means to know and follow Jesus. And so if that's you, we are especially grateful that you've decided to be with us. Now, the cool thing about joining us during At the Movies series is if you are here for the first time, tuning in for the first time, we've got some free movie tickets that we want to send your way. Here's how you can get them. Scan this QR code. It'll take you to our digital connection card. Fill that out with your name, email, any other information you're willing to share with us. And you'll have some free tickets headed your way this week, simply as our way of saying thank you for joining us today. And if somebody invited you, we'd love to know that too, along with anything else you'd like to share with us. Now, if you've got some kiddos with you today, as soon as you're done with this weekend service, we encourage you to jump over to crosspointweb.org/family. Check out the amazing online experiences for you and your kids. I'm telling you, they're going to love it. And if you are a 7th through 12th grade student, or you have one, we want to invite you to join us at the Chase tonight. Check this out. That's right, the Chase continues tonight. This is a multi-week competition filled with fun challenges, team building, opportunities to make new friends, and relevant messages from some pretty cool speakers. Each week is designed to be an easy entry point for new students. And so we hope to see you tonight at 6 p.m. right here on the Crosspoint campus. I'll be there, hope you will too. Now, if you're a parent, you know that parenting can be quite a ride. And so if you're looking for a way to sharpen, refresh, renew your parenting, teaching, or coaching skills, we're thrilled to share that our partners at the Shift Initiative are going to be offering a 6-week course on the Nurtured Heart approach to parenting beginning Monday, September 25th. At the end of this course, you'll walk away with the skills and the vocabulary that you need to grow some inner wealth and unleash greatness inside of those that you parent, especially the ones that you may consider more intense than others. Reserve your spot today through this QR code and use the promo code XPTFamily for a 25% discount on registration. Next, you and I have the opportunity to change a life on the other side of the world from wherever you are right now through something as simple as school supplies. Check this out. Those backpacks of school supplies the students were holding up, that's because of you. And we're back at it again this year. For just a $25 donation, you can provide an entire year's worth of supplies for a student. And let me tell you, the work that they're doing there is incredible. I've seen it with my own eyes. This is something worth being a part of. So scan the QR code to get started, include VPA backpacks in the memo on your donation. One last thing, if you are a person that is up for a good party, we want to invite you to our pre-Labor Day weekend after party on Thursday, August 31st. Invite a friend to come join you here at Crosspoint campus for the Thursday early weekend service, and stay for the after party with dog brats and summer beverages, both the kid-friendly and the adult variety. We'd love to see you as we kick off the holiday weekend early right here at Crosspoint. All right, we have got a great service for you today. We're looking, as I mentioned a minute ago, at one of the hottest and most intense movies of the summer, Oppenheimer. and how we can be a part of a world-changing team. If you haven't seen the movie yet, check out this trailer.
This is a national emergency.
Detonator charged.
We're in a race against the Nazis. And I know what it means if the Nazis have a bomb.
We have a 12-month head start.
18.
How could you possibly know that?
We've got one hope. All America's industrial might and scientific innovation connected here. A secret laboratory. Keep everyone there until it's done.
Let's go recruit some scientists.
Build a town, build it fast. If we don't let scientists bring their families, we'll never get the best.
Why would we go to the middle of nowhere for who knows how long?
Why? Why? How about because this is the most important thing to ever happen in the history of the world?
You're the great improviser, but this you can't do in your head.
Are we saying there's a chance that when we push that button, we destroy the world?
Chances are near zero.
Near zero.
What do you want from theory alone?
Zero would be nice.
This is a matter of life and death. But I can perform this miracle.
World War II would be over. Our boys would come home.
That's happening, isn't it?
The world will remember this day. Our work here will ensure a peace mankind has never seen.
Until somebody builds a bigger one.
You are the man who gave them the power to destroy themselves. And the world is not prepared.
8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3,
Truman needs to know what's next.
2,
What's next?
1.
go. The sun hasn't died. Deep in my bones, straight from inside.
Wow, I tell you what, let's give it up for these guys, man, amazing. I tell you what, there's some energy in this place today between the Oppenheimer trailer and talking about being radioactive. We're going to take a look at this film, and as we do in this series, some of the spiritual threads, a lot of questions this movie raises. We're not going to get to all of them, but we're going to dig into some of these. So excited you're here with us this weekend, and excited those who are joining us online. Let's make some noise for those tuning in across our city, on the other side of a screen, across our state, our nation. So exciting to have you with us, and honored you're joining us with us this weekend. My name's Curt, and if you are here for the first time in the seats online, you've got free movie tickets coming your way, so make sure you scan the QR code, fill out the connection card with your name, at least some contact info so we know where to send those movie tickets, and of course, we would love to hear anything else you would like to share with us. Now, this movie, Oppenheimer, I tell you what, a lot of energy. It's a story of J. Robert Oppenheimer, who's kind of referred to as the father of the atomic bomb. And this story really is how he brought together this whole group of scientists and it really created this atomic bomb and this thing that did change the world. And it's a story of innovation. It's a story of continuing to advance ideas. It obviously brought a huge moral dilemma, which we're not going to get into that part of the story, but that is certainly a part of the story. And it brought an end, as we know, to World War II. And obviously very controversial back in Oppenheimer's day, and I think even still today in some circles. And so however you feel about that, I think the one thing we can all agree on is that, you know, these scientists came together and they did something that changed the world from that point forward. And the world's never been the same since. And so we're going to kind of take off of that theme this weekend, and we're going to talk about another event in human history where the world was changed and is still changing today. It was long before this bomb took place. It was long before Oppenheimer. In fact, this team has been at work for over 2,000 years, and instead of developing a weapon of destruction, a weapon of death, it was actually a team that championed this idea of life, of freeing us from things that are holding us down, of creating hope, and inviting every single one of us to be a part of the initiative. And I was kind of reminded of this movement that we're a part of, and we're going to dig into this last week. We were driving across Carmel, 131st Street, Main Street, and Hazel Dell. There's a little water park over in that area that we used to take our kids to all the time when they were young. And we were driving to a cross-country meet across Carmel. And the kids in the car, as we went by that little water park, said, gosh, Mom and Dad, remember what happened the last time we were at this park? And of course, we all did. I mean, immediately, we all knew exactly what they were talking about. And our kids were young. It was in the first year of Crosspoint. In fact, this really solidified for me why what we're doing here actually is world-changing. And we were strapping our kids in our car. We only had 3 of them at the time. Our 4th one wasn't in our family yet. And all of a sudden, there was this screeching of tires. And everybody that was in the parking lot, coming and going, just immediately paused and looked out at the street. And there was this huge pickup truck that just screeched to a stop. These two double doors on the cab of this pickup just kind of busted open wide, and this young 20-some-year-old guy had this young lady by the shoulder, by her arm and her leg, and literally like threw her out of the cab and into the ditch. About 8-10 feet, she rolled, and he squealed off, took off, and of course, there are a number of people at that intersection, and I was like, oh man, do I need to go help? And a bunch of people had already jumped in that were right there at the intersection waiting to get out. And, within a matter of, a minute or so, I think there were sirens in the distance. And it was just a very disturbing moment just to see the venom and oh my gosh, a young lady being thrown out of a truck. And it just hit me. I'm like, what is going on behind the scenes? I have no idea the story, what's going on in that person's heart. But I started asking the question, what can change a human heart? That guy's probably going to, end up, getting arrested and go into the system, and he's probably going to get charged with some kind of, battery of some kind, possibly spend some time in jail. And yet there's nothing in any of those systems that, even though those things are going to happen, that are going to rehabilitate or actually change or transform a human heart. And it just brought front and center that the work that we were doing as we were starting here at Crosspoint, we really are in world-changing work. That Jesus is the one that actually has the ability to change the human heart, and that movement's still going strong today. And so we're going to take a look at what it means to be a part of this, this idea of coming together. And it all began with Jesus gathering this group of people. It's the reason you and I are here right now. It's the reason that those of you tuning online, you're tuning in, because there's something that Jesus brings. There's a hope that he brings that we just don't find anywhere else in the world. And what we're a part of right now, whether you're here for the first time or you're here every single week, I just believe the work that we're a part of, we're experiencing, is actually something that is world-changing. And at our core, I think we long to be a part of that. I think we're actually wired to want to be a part of those kinds of things with that kind of purpose. That's certainly what these scientists were in this movie with Oppenheimer. They wanted to be a part of something that was going to change the world. In fact, Forbes magazine recently said research shows that people who have connected to a purpose that's greater than themselves are happier, they're more contented, enjoy richer relationships, and are more resilient in the face of adversity than those who aren't. And at the same time, there's other research that recently came out that said that just 1/4 of Americans, adults, actually say they have a clear sense of purpose, that they're actually a part of something where they feel a sense of meaning and purpose. And so what does it mean to be a part of that? How do I belong to a world-changing team? This is what I want us to dig into this week. And when I say belong, I'm not talking that we observe it, that we have a chance to sit and maybe just kind of see it happening. But what does it mean for us to say, man, I am a part of that. I am a part of making that happen. Because again, I think we all want things to be a part of things that matter. I think we want to be a part of things that change lives. We want to be a part of things that touch and change families, that have the ability to change the trajectory of communities and even nations. And I'm not talking anything in the political process. I'm talking something way, way, way deeper than that. And so if you're looking for that sense of meaning, that sense of purpose, how do I be a part of things that actually change things? You're in the right place this weekend, and I'm going to have an invitation for you later on in our time. Before we get to that, I want to take us all the way back to this team, this first group of world changers that we find in the first century. And just to set the stage for us a little bit, this is where Jesus, he had just walked out of the grave. He predicted, hey, I'm going to die. I'm going to come back 3 days later. They had no idea what he's talking about. And yet anybody who predicts death and resurrection then pulls it off, people are taking note and going, oh man, obviously you're a little different. And so he's now kind of interacting with this team that he had assembled. He's spending a bit of time with them. And then all of a sudden he just disappears. It's like they're just like looking, and he fades into I don't know what happens. I can't explain. It says he ascended into the heavenlies, whatever that means. He just was gone. And at that time, about 120 people had become a part of this movement that he was doing. And there's this guy named Peter who we talk about pretty frequently. Peter's always first to market, always the first to speak up. And Peter gives this amazing sermon, if you will, message. And this day that is now, looking back on it, called the Day of Pentecost. And this is the day where God unveiled or revealed his Holy Spirit, this Spirit that when Jesus returned to heaven, he said, I'm going to leave my Spirit with you. And that Spirit began to work in and through these people who were partnering with God in this world-changing movement. And all of a sudden, in that day, that number swelled from about 100, 120 people to over 3,000 people that had joined because they were wanting to be a part of something bigger. And I want us to take a look at how this first century community operated, the world-changing things they were doing among themselves. And so we're going to look at the book of Acts. This is right after the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. Then the book of Acts. This is like the acts of the people that were beginning to carry on what Jesus had started. And so this is a paraphrase of this passage from a professor up at Wheaton University named Dr. Gilbert Bolzekian. And this is one of the things that really launched Crosspoint. This is one of the pictures of what we believed the local church was to be in the world. In fact, here's what it says. It says, there was once a community of believers who were so totally devoted to God that their life, look at this, was charged with the Spirit's power. In that band of Christ followers, believers loved each other with a radical kind of love. They took off their masks. They shared their lives with one another. They laughed, they cried, they prayed, they sang, and they served together in authentic Christian fellowship. Those who had more shared freely with those who had less, until socioeconomic barriers, they just melted away. People related together in ways that bridged gender and racial chasms and celebrated cultural differences. This community of believers, this church, it offered unbelievers a vision of life that was so beautiful, it took their breath away. I'm so captivated by that. There was something about the way they were interacting and serving and interfacing with the world that it took people who weren't leaning into God, it took their breath away. It was so dynamic that they couldn't resist it, and the Lord added to the number daily. Those who were being saved, those who were joining the cause, those who were saying, hey, I want to be a part of this. I want to be a part of this movement. And every time I read this, of course, I go, man, is that relevant still today? I think this is a transgenerational team, transcultural, because it doesn't matter what culture or part of the world or ethnicity you come from or time in history. I think you're like, man, I want to be a part of something like that. And so I want us to take a look at some of the world-changing things that this small group of people began doing and kind of answer the question, okay, what does it look like to be a part of a world-changing team? The first thing it says that they did is they devoted themselves. It says they devoted themselves to each other and to God. These two words just jump out. They devoted themselves. It wasn't just like, hey, I'm hanging out, I'm here. I mean, that's like the starting place, right? That's the starting place. They weren't like, you know, they weren't just like sitting back and saying, hey, it's fun to be observing of this. That's where we all start. Oftentimes when we walk into here for the first time or we tune in for the first time, you know, listen, if you're here for the first time or tuning in, you don't give a rip about what's going on at Crosspoint. You don't give a rip about the things we think are important around here. All you're looking for, honestly, is you're like, I've got some problems and I'm trying to see if this place has any solutions to the problems that I'm experiencing. That's usually the thing that always takes us to a place of walking in to a setting like this. And what I hope you see today is that Jesus actually not only brings us hope in the midst of the things that we're struggling with, the problems we may be facing, but he actually gives us an invitation to be a part of it. A simple invitation. It's not just attending. I mean, that might be where we start, but that doesn't change anything. You know, see, this group of world changers, they were hand raisers. They were biased to action kind of people. They were participating in touching people's lives in ways that people are like, oh my gosh, this takes our breath away. In fact, there's this saying in the first century that people would often say of this group of people that were these world changers. They say, may you be covered in the dust of your rabbi. Now, Jesus was a rabbi. And what they meant by that, they're like, but may you be following so closely your rabbi, what he's doing, the things he's a part of, the way he's interacting, the things Jesus was doing, the way he was serving people. Maybe you be like so close to him that, man, the dust off his sandals are covering you. May be covered in the dust of the rabbi. Which is interesting because, you know, the cool thing about Jesus' invitation that dates all the way back to the very beginning of this movement, this group of world changers that comes forward all the way to you and I today, his invitation is always the exact same. I mean, it wasn't, hey, quit doing that. Would you stop that, cut it out, quit doing the bad stuff? That was never his invitation. He just simply would say, would you just follow me? Would you participate with me? And Jesus' brother James, if you think about that for a moment, his literal brother, like biological brother. We've talked about him the last few weeks. I mean, think about what it'd be like to be the brother of the most perfect person in the world. Like, that'd be kind of intimidating, right? It took him a while to believe his brother was who he said he was, that he was actually the Son of God. But eventually he got there, and here's one of the things he wrote down in this little letter he wrote. He said, come near to God, and he will come near to you. Meaning, he says, when you begin to follow closer, when you begin to just lean in and say, I want to participate in what you're doing, God knows the intentions of your heart. All right, he sees that and he goes, oh, that's somebody right there who really, really wants to be a part of something bigger, who really, really wants me to get involved in their life. And God, he honors that, and he begins to do things in us and through us. So how does that happen? How do we begin to do that? What does it mean to belong to a world-changing community? There's several ways here at Crosspoint that we just naturally want to continue to help you to do that. And if you're here for the first time, to help you begin to do that. Several ways our church is committed to help you grow, and not just grow, but like be a part of something bigger. And this picture in Acts 2 gives us some glimpses into it. It says that this first community group of people, they devoted themselves to practical teaching, to learning, to being growth mindset, to saying, hey, where we are is, okay, this is where we start. God meets us here, but we want to go forward. And see, people that have grown a big faith, people that you see, that I see, that you see them sustain big things in their life, like, man, I hope I can have that kind of faith. I wish I could have that kind of faith when I go through difficult things. The people that have experienced that have taken steps into the unknown out of faith, when you're like, I just don't know that I could do that. They are people who have developed that over time because they continue to grow. They continue to put themselves in places where they're exposed and challenged to grow forward. And see, perhaps for some of us, we've never, been in a place where faith was just made practical. Perhaps, you're never in a place where a Bible was sitting around, but you never knew, like, I can actually access it. I don't have to read the whole thing. I mean, I can just pick like one verse or a little snippet, and then I can say, okay, what does that mean for me? And actually begin to help it make sense in my life. For some of us, this whole idea of pursuing faith, it's more like, it's just an ongoing sense of feeling like a failure. In fact, a number of years ago, I had a guy that would always say to me after services here, he's like, I just don't know if this is real church here. I'm like, oh yeah, why is that? Because there's some things you would question, when you come in here, if this is really church, and which is by intention. He'd say, well, I just think a good service is when I walk out feeling really bad about myself. I'm like, well, that sounds horrible. Why would you want to, I wouldn't even want to go to that. That's like, but for many people, it's like, it's just something I have to do, and I feel bad, and I never have any practical handles. And no, perhaps you've just never been introduced to see the things Jesus talks about, and the things Peter talks about, and Paul and James. These things are actually to give us tools to help faith be practical, that we can actually be a part of like the change happening in us and through us for others. In fact, this is one of the things that Paul writes to this mentee of his named Timothy. He says, every part of Scripture is God-breathed and useful in one way or another. He said, it shows us certain things. He says things like truth. It shows us like what the nature of God's character is, what the truth of his character is. It exposes things. It exposes our rebellion. I can be a little rebellious. I don't know if you can be rebellious. It says it exposes that. Sometimes Curt just wants to go his own way. I'm like, I'm just going to do it my own way. I know what God wants. I'm going to do it my way. It has a way of showing us, oh gosh, that's not a good thing. It usually leads to bad places. Correcting our mistakes. All right? We don't always do things right. It helps show us that, when we this next line, when we live according to God's way, life is so much better, and we're so much better at life. And through this, we're actually put together and shaped up. And look at this last phrase for the tasks that God has for us. Meaning he wants us to participate in something. He's building us for something. See, this is the role of a great coach. This is what practical teaching does. Explains reality, helps us connect dots, gives us tools. There's a guy that I want to share a quote with you, and he's somewhat of a controversial guy, at least here in Indianapolis. His name's Bill Belichick. I know some of us are not fans. I've never been a huge fan, but I tell you what, the dude knows how to raise some football players, I have to tell you. And I saw this article on him a few years ago where it talked about him helping guys progress up the depth chart. To going from just an average player to having a starting position. Here's what he said. He said, our job as coaches or whatever part of the organization we're in is to provide instruction, the right methods. So if we send a guy down the wrong road, even though he works hard and improves, it's not going to turn out right. We've got to give the players a chance. We've got to give a team a chance to have a good game plan by coaching, having good coaching techniques and setting up drills that will allow the player to improve. This is what we do every single weekend here. This is what this first century community did. They were learners, said, hey, we're learning something so we can take it out and put it into action. So you have the tools to actually be world changers. World changers, they take in healthy doses of practical teaching so they can get from where they are to experience new things, and their life God can work through them in new ways. Another way that world changers operate, we see this again in this first century community, is world-changing teams, they do life together. They fellowship together. They like spending time together. They hung out together. They spend time with people headed in the same direction as they are, and they invite their friends to be a part of that so they can see, hey, these are normal people. This is one of the reasons we do things like carpool cinema out in the parking lot. In fact, we got another one coming up here later in September. You'll be hearing about that soon. Why do we do that? We do that so that we can invite our friends who otherwise might not step into this room or into this space, because inviting people to church or a service sometimes is intimidating, but they'll come to the parking lot and they'll see that, hey, these are normal people. And they'll see that, hey, these people are just trying to figure out life the same way we are. And it sets a platform for them to begin to see that spirituality is relevant, that God actually brings value to our lives. It's why we do things like after parties next weekend. Why do we do after parties each week, every now and then after service? You ever wonder that? I know some of you wonder that. Let me tell you why we do that. In fact, the first after party we did, it was coming out of the pandemic, and it was Cinco de Mayo, and we decided to do a margarita night after party after a Cinco de Mayo service, happened to fall on a Thursday night. And we had the biggest crowd we'd had in the history of Thursday night since the pandemic, which was amazing. And then I started going, oh my gosh, I wonder if people are just coming because we're serving margaritas, which is probably a good reason, right? And I'm like, gosh, they're just coming for the alcohol. And I started freaking out. I'm like, oh my gosh, and so I went to the bartender who doesn't attend here. I don't know that he's a person of faith, that was serving that night, and I said, oh my gosh, how, are people, how many drinks are people taking? They're getting overserved. He said, I'm not going to overserve. He said, nobody's getting overserved. He said, most people are just taking one, if that. He said, what I'm seeing right here is people are just looking for opportunities to connect in community with other people, and you've just provided a chance for them to do that in a way that's relevant and everybody understands. An easy way to invite their friends. An easy way to hang out and let our hair down. I mean, Jesus let his hair down. He liked to have fun with his friends and help fellowship and connect and share our lives, because those are the platforms that actually lead us to some of the deeper places of community, that perhaps lead to an invitation to join a small group. In fact, if we got small groups kicking off later this fall. In fact, in about 6-7 weeks, 1st of October. If you've not been in a small group experience, man, get ready. We're going to be encouraging every single one of us to get in a group, to be into deeper community. If you want to host a group, man, this is like a shameless plug. We're looking for hosts. We're looking for people to say, I want to create community. Maybe you've done that before. Maybe you're just interested in getting connected to others. We'll train you. We'll give you the tools. If you want to host, man, let us know. We would love for you to be a world changer in this way. See, another thing we see is this world-changing teams, they prayed together. And we believe in the power of prayer here at Crosspoint. In fact, every service we do, we've got a prayer team that's in the room, and they're available to pray with you. That's why we say, hey, if you've got something, if you're walking in, especially if you're newer and you're like, man, I don't care about all the things going on here. All I want to know, is there a solution to my problems? This is why we have a prayer team. Its primary purpose is the prayer team. So that if you're dealing with something, you want to know, is there someone that will just talk to me a bit, maybe give me some encouragement, pray that God would get involved in this? We've got a team that is in this room every service to do that with you. We got a team. For those of you tuning in online, all you have to do is text the keyword need prayer to 317-834-7373. Our prayer team will contact you within the day. They'll have prayer with you over the phone. They'll be happy to connect with you in whatever you're struggling with, because this is what world changers do. This is what this world changing community did in the first century. We pray together. Some of you write your prayer, needs on your connection card. We read every single one of those, just so you know. Our directional team, our pastoral team, we get those, we read over them, we pray. Each one of us individually, we pray for those. This is what world changers do. The next thing we see this first century community doing is that world-changing teams, they serve together. It says they laughed, they cried, they prayed, and then they served together in authentic Christian fellowship. I think what was cool in this movie, this Oppenheimer film, and the story of how he pulled all these scientists together was that these people from different realms of the scientific community, they all began to see that, man, I have something unique to bring to the table that can actually benefit people, who can change the world. Did you know that God's dream for your life always involves serving other people? Always. It's one of the reasons you exist. It's one of the greatest purposes and places of meaning that we find in life. And the local church, the entity that Jesus established to further his movement and his hope in the world, it doesn't just give us a chance to change the world, it gives us a chance to actually change eternity. It's one of the reasons I get so passionate about volunteering and why you hear ad nauseum, get on a team, join a team. Because you know what? I've seen marriages change. I've seen people jump into roles where they serve on a team and they begin to focus on the needs of somebody else instead of just being like, me, mine. This is all about me. And all of a sudden I see their marriage begin to take a turn. I see repairs begin to happen because they begin to realize that their purpose in life is bigger than just like getting my needs, but I'm here actually to serve others, including my spouse. I've seen relationships with kids and adult parents and their adult children change because, again, when we begin to serving as a pathway, when we begin to serve, it changes our heart. We begin to see that, again, I'm here for something bigger than myself. It's not just, hey, well, how can I get the best thing for me? And so serving is a pathway, but it also ties us into a purpose. You know, when we first launched Crosspoint, we had a whole bunch of people, our whole team. We really believed we were here to bring the hope of the world. We believed the local church, is the hope of the world. It gave people a chance to latch onto something, be a part of something that actually could change the trajectory of their lives. And nearly everybody that's a part of our team were volunteers. I was the only paid staff member when we first started. And I'll never forget one of my friends who was our initial connections director, not like dating connections. We didn't have that kind of service. It was like connections, like connecting people to small groups, connecting people to a serving team. And I had asked him to be in this role, and he worked in the medical field. He was a medical doctor. And he, saw a whole bunch of patients every day. And I'm like, man, I felt like, is he going to take this? Is he going to feel like we're like underselling his ability? Like, he's doing all kinds of meaningful things during the day. We're just asking him to do some menial, like connecting, talking to people. And I'll never forget, this is when this really became real to me, that the work that happens here is world changing. He said to me one day, he said, Curt, sometimes I wonder if the work I do, I see 25, 30 patients a day, I wonder if it really makes all that big of a difference. I've served some needs and answered questions, but he's like, when I'm connecting people to life-giving communities where they get into a place where they're known and they can know other people, when I'm connecting people to, serving on a team and, just being a part of something bigger than themselves, he's like, you just need to know that this is the thing that brings me one of the greatest senses of purpose in my life. I'm like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. See, while your career, your success, scholarships, awards, those are all fine, those are all good, but when you jump in and serve others in the local church, that echoes throughout eternity. And whenever we hear people talk about their story of faith, how God has perhaps grown them. There's always a moment where they stepped out of their comfort zone and they saw a need and they're like, I'm going to step in, I'm going to do this. Where they said, I feel like I'm weighing over my head. I don't feel prepared for this, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to jump in. And they just were a hand raiser and boom, all of a sudden, God began to help them be a world changer. In fact, I want you to hear one of the stories of one of our teammates here that's doing this very thing. Take a look at this.
So January, we were looking for a new church, and we came to Crosspoint because you had Thursday nights. So we were like, oh, Thursday night's perfect for us, it works for us. So we went Thursday night, and our first Thursday night was game night. It's crazy, right? With all the balls and everything, and we'd never seen anything like that. So that's January. And then we were coming weekly. It was like, hey, this is a pretty cool place. So we came weekly, and then in March, I don't know why it was March, but I remember March, you did a service about serving and, it pulls on your heart, do this. And I'm thinking, wait, I'm feeling something tug. And I've been to churches before and I've never felt that. And I thought, well, maybe I could do that. Oh, I could serve coffee. I could stand in the front door. I could do that. But then you talked about, we really need, and you put up the number of, we need 20-some people for the kids, back in the kids area. And I thought, no way am I doing that. Because I am a step parent, and I guess technically, if I had a label, I'd be classified as a childless stepmom, because I have no biological children of my own. I have an 18-year-old stepdaughter. And so I thought, I have no experience with kids. Like little itty bitties, nothing. Babies, no way. But I just kept feeling a pull, and I thought, well, I'll just give it a shot. And then you even said, if you don't know, like, it's okay, we'll try it out and we can move you around. So I thought, well, I'll give it a shot. So I signed up, and I got put in the preschool room, and I was freaking out because I thought, I don't know kids, I don't know this, I can't do this is giving me anxiety. I mean, no way. And then it was so easy, because I came in and there was a little script and they put me with somebody, and it was like, oh, it's not as bad as I think. You know, on my journey, I'm on my own journey as well, and I'm not necessarily, I guess I would say, a baby Christian, right? But I'm still on my journey as well, and I feel like, well, part of what we're supposed to do is serve. I hear that in the service, I've read about it in the Bible, I've been in small groups, and everybody says, serve, serve, serve. But I've never really found a place where I serve and I fit, if that makes any sense. We've tried, we've gone out and gone here and there, but it just, nothing has really stuck. And then coming back here with those preschool kids, these kids, it's just, it does something. One, it teaches me how to be a kid again, right? Two, it helps me, I don't know, it fulfills something in my heart a little bit. I guess, you know, my grandmother, she always used to say that you have to have three things in your life. You know, you need your career, you need your family, and you need your religion, your faith. And I found the two, but I didn't have the third one, the faith, right? And it fills up a piece of you. You have an emptiness in your heart that I've filled, but there's even more room. I didn't realize that, even though that was filled with my faith and my journey, but when you serve, that fills it even more. And I didn't realize how much more room I had. But I love it, it's awesome. And Chris is actually, and it's affecting Chris. And that's the other thing, you know, talk about the ripple effect, right? Because Chris is now coming and he's helping me, and he's volunteering with me here too. And it does something for our marriage too. When we serve together, we've done it a few times, it really does something. I just love watching him and the joy in him, and I get a kick out of seeing him be in touch with his inner child too, and it's so fun. And I think it's really important that we all, that we all get to do that.
How amazing is that? Man, let's thank Molly. Holy cow. I think one of the things I love how she found a place of belonging. And that began to do something in her and through her when she found a place to serve. And listen, we're seeing God do some amazing things, in people's lives. And in the last number of months, it's just been exciting. It's been cool how God has been, kind of bringing people to him, drawing people to him through this place. It's been cool how God has been, helping us. He has incredible dreams for you, and he wants to grow you. And many of us are taking steps. And as we head into fall, we just did a re-up with all of our volunteers. If you're on a volunteer team, you probably just filled out something that said, hey, I'm interested in continuing or changing roles. We do that every single year. But I realize there's a lot of us that don't have those roles. So I want to give an invitation to every single one of us to be a part of this world-changing team. And so what I want you to do, we're going to raise the house lights a bit. I want you to reach in front of you in the room. You've got a card in front of you that looks just like this. It says, join a world-changing team. I just want you to take the pen. You can fill out the logistics name. You can decide later if you're going to do anything with this, but go ahead and just do that. I want to talk you through this a bit. If you're tuning in online, there's a button next to the stream. This is join a world-changing team. And so go ahead, click that, open that up. And as you're sitting and holding that, I just want you to think for a moment, this is one of the things world changers do. They serve together. And I want to talk a bit about our welcoming coffee bar teams. The welcoming teams, they serve at the front door, greeters. They help families, find where their kids go when they're here for the first time. Our coffee bar team serves amazing coffee. How about our coffee bar team? You guys enjoy the coffee? I enjoy the coffee. It's amazing. And that is changing the world one cup at a time, by the way. Every time you drink a cup of coffee that we pay for, it helps fund a Rwandan coffee farmer on the other side of the world have a living. And so your drinking of coffee is doing some amazing good. It currently takes about 15 volunteers on any given weekend to cover all those roles in our Thursday service and our 2 Sunday services. Now, that's 15 people, not the same people every weekend. There's different groups of people. Now, we have a goal of growing that team by 10 volunteers over the next 30 days, serving either Thursday or in our Sunday services, so that everybody who comes in gets warmly welcomed. And so another cool thing that's happened in our Commons is we're going to be opening up our Commons coffee bar during the week this fall. That used to happen pre-pandemic. It's going to be open as a common workspace, co-working space, absolutely free. You can come in, you can work, use Wi-Fi, enjoy coffee Monday through Thursday. And we've got opportunities for 10 volunteers during the workday, Monday through Thursday, in order to make that happen. Listen, I just want to ask you, would you consider being a part of one of those teams? If so, just mark that on here. You're going to decide later if you're going to turn this in, but just mark that on here and say, hey, I think I could do that. I could show up a little early before service so I can welcome people before they get here. I can stay a little after, tell them, hey, it's so good to see you. I can serve a warm cup of coffee. If you can do that, man, we would love to hear that on this card. How about the band up here? We got the band production team in this room. This is what we experience in this space right here. And, this includes running cameras. It involves, pulling out your inner rock star if you got musical talent. And again, currently about 15 volunteers a weekend to make this environment happen. And they're different volunteers every weekend. Some people serve multiple times during the month. But we have, again, a goal of growing this team by 15 individuals, 15 people to continue to inspire, bring great music, to be able to take this experience online to the online spaces every single week. And I just want to ask you, if you're like, hey, I've got some of those skills. I enjoy, technology or running, computer, like PowerPoint type programs, or I've got musical abilities. Would you just let us know? And we've got kind of systems where we run you through an audition and we'll help you get up to speed if, you feel like you need some confidence, or train you on some of these places. But this is a place where, again, you can say, hey, how do I be a part of inspiring, bringing hope to the world? This is what world changers do. Let's talk about our Crosspoint kids and students for a moment. Whenever you see one of these shirts right here, it says Change Maker, that's somebody who's a hero back in our kids' environments. They're helping build the faith of the next generation. And currently, there's about 30 people every single weekend it takes to pull off all of our kids' environments, Crosspoint student ministries on Sunday nights, to be able to help our students grow in their faith. And here's one of the realities we're experiencing right now. Many weekends, our children and students outpace our volunteer availability. Meaning, last weekend, this Sunday as well, we've got one environment that's not going to be open to kids because we don't have the volunteer availability, so we've had to consolidate, which we hate because we love having environments for kids to learn about Jesus and grow in their faith. And we want to grow this environment. And so perhaps some of you, like Molly, you're sitting here going, I don't know, she works in corporate America. I mean, I loved, she was talking after we captured her story about how this comes up and people are like, you serve with preschoolers? And she's like, yeah. And then it gives her a chance to also talk about her church, which I love. I love. This is what world changers do. And so maybe like Molly, you've got a little tug on your heart. Like, if you want to know the area of biggest impact, it's always kids. Always kids, always students, because this is where we're building the next generation. And, one of the things I've discovered over the years, and this is why this area is so important, I did 13 years in kids and student ministry. And I began to realize that volunteer readiness paces ministry opportunity. And what I mean by that is I was in a startup ministry a number of years ago with students, 7th to 12th grade. We had 2 students when I started. And they said, we want you to grow this thing. I'm like, all right, I'm going to recruit some adults. So I recruited 10 adults to join me on this team. And at some point, we had 2 students and about 10 adults, 4 students, 10 adults. And I remember people going, don't we have this backwards? Don't we need like 2 adults for like 10 students? I'm like, well, that would be logical, but no, we need 10 adults because we're building this thing. And what I discovered is God sends students where we are prepared to serve them. And so in about 1.5 years, 2 years, we had over 50 students connecting with that student ministry because we had adults to connect with them in their small groups, to connect with them and follow up and be a part of their lives. This is how God works. In fact, this is why Jesus said one time, the harvest is plentiful. Man, there are people that are looking to experience and step into world-changing teams to be a part of the movement of what God's doing, but the workers are few. And so let me ask you, would you consider being a part of one of those teams with infants, with toddlers, preschoolers, serving twice a month, maybe once if you want to start there? If you say, hey, I could do that, man, let us know on this card. There's a process. Again, we do background checks. We'll give you an orientation, let you try something. If that's not a good fit, we'll help you find another place. But see, this is what world changers do. See, world-changing people, they participate in things bigger than themselves. In fact, Julie and I, we were down at the Colts-Bears game last Saturday night, super excited about football season starting, and then we got down there, I'm like, oh man, I forget how much preseason sucks. You get all amped up, you're excited, and then the game's just like, playing second and third string guys, they're trying to make the team, and so we went out and got some food midway through the second quarter, and while we're standing out there, the Colts, of course, scored a touchdown, the first half touchdown, and we're like, oh man, we heard the crowd roar, we're like, oh, we scored a touchdown. We looked at each other, and I don't know if you've ever done that with the team you follow. You're like, oh, we scored. Why? It's interesting. I was thinking, why do we do that? Because I looked at Julie, she didn't throw the pass. She didn't do anything to make the touchdown happen. I didn't catch it. And yet we're like, we scored. You know why we do that? You know why we're drawn to be a part of stuff like that? It's because we want to be tied into things that are bigger than ourselves. And when you jump onto one of these teams at CrossFit, listen, every time somebody steps through the waters of baptism, when you're serving on one of these teams, listen, you're part of their story. You're part of what made that happen. Every time a family walks in our doors and their marriage is struggling, or they're struggling in their dating, or perhaps in their singleness, and they are met and realize this is a place where they can belong, that they can become a part of, and that God can actually bring hope and do some things in them and then use them, and they can be a part of something bigger. When that happens, guess what? You're part of that story. Every time somebody walks through our doors, and you may never know this, we hear the stories after where they say, I gave it one more shot, and I walked in the doors of a church just hoping that I might get the hope that it's worth living another day. When you greet them and welcome them, and they feel like they're seeing and hear words like, man, it's just so good to see you here today. Man, I tell you what, you are a part of their story. When you drop $25 in an envelope to support kids over in Kenya and their school supplies on the other side of the world, guess what? You're part of their story. You drop that in the joy box, and man, you're doing world-changing work. This is why Paul, he says, you are no longer strangers or outsiders. You belong here. When we step into the world-changing work, God is building a home. He is using us all, irrespective of how we got here. All right, you might go, man, if you knew my story. Irrespective of how you got here, this is what he's building. He wants to build it in and through you. I want you to hold this card in your hand. The band's going to play a song for us. We're going to sing this in a moment, but we're just going to give you a moment. I want you to just say, okay, do I want to join a team here? Perhaps you're not in a place where you're a part of a team. And so I think this is why Oppenheimer, was such a cool experience for the people that joined him, because they felt like they were a part of something bigger. They all brought their unique things, and they could say, man, I was a part of this innovation. I think it's why we're drawn to movies like this, because we see it like, I want that kind of experience in my life. How do you do this? You have to decide. You have to say, okay, I'm going to jump in. I'm going to choose to engage. I'm not going to be just an attender, a spectator. That's a starting point. I'm going to get in the game. So I just ask, would you join us? That's the invitation. Would you join, regardless of where you are in that spiritual journey? Man, there's a place for everybody. I want you to consider, would you want to join a world-changing team? I guarantee you, it will begin to bring a purpose about, and you'll feel a sense of belonging. So think through this card, maybe mark a couple areas, and I'll give you a few instructions after the band sings here for us.
You find me in the shadows, the places only I know. I hear you speak your mercy over me. In the darkness loses power. I'm reminded grace is stronger. My Savior's love is never gonna leave. I belong, I belong, I belong to you.
All right, one of the cool things about what Brad just sang for us is, man, that's where God found us. Oftentimes we probably found ourselves in the shadows, and we're looking for some meaning, we're looking for purpose, we're looking for a little bit of hope. And God said, oh man, I'm gonna find you. I'm not gonna leave you there. I'm gonna take you someplace. And he invites us to be a part of what he's doing. I'm going to pray for us in a moment. We're going to sing this song. And again, it's a decision moment. I want you to decide, hey, do I want to be a part of this? If you're a part of the world-changing things that happen out of here, I just want to say thank you. If you're not, man, the invitation, regardless of where you are in your spiritual journey, there's a place for all of us. It's the belonging we find. It's the purpose we begin to feel. It's the things on the other side of the screen. You go, man, when I do this, if I show up and serve in some way, kids, students, tech, whatever that might be, I'm telling you, you're going to find that you're tapping into a deep place in our soul. Let's go ahead and stand. I want to pray for us. Heavenly Father, thank you for the world-changing work you're doing. Started over 2,000 years ago. We see these stories, we're drawn to them, and yet we know the work you're doing is actually bringing hope and bringing encouragement and bringing a future. We really do believe that the local church is the hope of the world. Not the building, but the work you're doing in us and through us, and people that need hope all around us. And so God, just nudge our hearts. Help us to see where we can be a part of that. Help us to see that you can use us, and you can use our gifts, and you can use the things that we uniquely are wired to bring. I mean, we might work in corporate America. We might work in the medical field. We may not use those skills. It might be the people skills that we use to care for people, to encourage, to coach, to mentor, to raise up. God, I just pray that you'd help us see that you created a place for us to belong. And God, we know when we do that, man, we are a part of work that feeds our soul, but man, it changes lives for eternity. So God, we want to commit ourselves to that. So thank you for the invitation. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for pulling us out of the darkness. And now, God, just help us to see where we can be a part of what you do and how we belong in the work you're doing. We pray these things according to your name and your spirit and your character, Jesus. Amen.
You find me in the shadows, the places only I know. I hear you speak your mercy over me. When the darkness loses power, I'm reminded grace is stronger. My Savior's love is never gonna leave. I've been lost.
Hey, there is a place for you to belong here at Crosspoint and to be a part of changing the world, one life at a time. Now, if you took a step today, we hope that you'll let us know on the connection card. And if you're interested in joining a volunteer team, we will be in touch with you this week. So excited if you are taking that step. Now, as Curt shared earlier, if you'd like someone to pray with you today, you can text the keyword need prayer to 317-834-7373, and someone from our prayer team will be in touch with you. And for those of you who are givers, I just want to say thank you. You make all of this possible through your generosity and what you give to the Joy Box. If you're not a giver and you'd like to become one, all you have to do is go to the Give button at the top of the screen or crosspointweb.org/give, and know that your gifts help fuel all the amazing things that God is doing in and around this place, including this service. So thank you so much. We can't wait to see you next time as we continue the series At the Movies. Have a fantastic week, everyone.